Hi there, welcome. Welcome to Homekeepers. Come right on in, my friend. So glad to be here with you today. And we've got a wonderful program planned for you. I have a return guest. I'll tell you about her in a minute, but I just want to make sure that I welcome you and hope you have a wonderful new year. There's something about a new year, isn't there? Of course there is. We're going to save more money. We're going to lose more weight. We're going to do this, and we're going to be great Christians, aren't we? All right. Let's write it down, and see how well we do at the end of the year. My guest today was with us some time ago, I think about 3 years ago. Her name is Carol Erb. She has a PhD, and she's a specialist in counseling women who have been betrayed by their men in their marriage, and has really gone the length on this subject. And this is her new journal, or her new workbook for people who are going through this, from betrayal to healing. And I went through it, and I said, this could be very, very helpful. There's nothing as painful as betrayal. And when you read in the Bible how Judas betrayed Jesus, and you probably won't live your whole life without being betrayed, but when you're betrayed by the one you love the most, I'm telling you, it's a deep, deep wound. And I think God has really ordained this lady to help people get out of that, maybe even a bit of a shortcut. You're going to love what she has to say. And I'm going to join Stephanie. We're going to make a cheese tortellini that's got all kinds of interesting things in it. So if she won't taste it, I will. Okay, I promise you that. But before I join her, I want to again offer you Carol Kent's. This is a fairly new devotional. He holds my hand, and I'm a great one for devotionals. And as we begin a new year, I'm beginning this one, and I can kind of hardly wait to get started. So I would really encourage you to order it and then catch up, because you probably won't have it right on New Year's Day. But for that gift of $20, we'll send it to you. You can use your credit card by calling 1-800-229-0059, or just write to us at Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758. I could never urge you strongly enough to be in the Word of God every single day. And I have been for years and years, and I don't know how bad I would be without it. Agree?
Amen. Amen. And I don't know how people do it without it.
Well, Stephanie wouldn't want me around, without the Word. I know that. So, are you thankful that I'm going to start a new devotional this year? Yes. All right. This is really a different one.
Yeah. So, truth be told, because we're always honest.
Yes, we are.
Okay. While we're taping this, it's the last show of the year. Okay?
Yes.
My brain is already in my pajamas at home, so we are lucky that this is a super simple recipe.
Yes, we are, because
I'm done.
Her annual Christmas celebration is 2 weeks at home in her jammies.
I'll drive to my parents. I will put clothes on for that, but then when I get to my parents, I will get back into my pajamas. That will be it. Okay, so it's supposed to be cheese tortellini. You couldn't find cheese tortellini, so we're using cheese ravioli. This is a really weird recipe, I think. Number one,
that's why I chose it.
Susan was just saying she loves corn with pasta. I don't know if I've ever had corn with pasta. I think that might be what's throwing me off. So we have some tomatoes that we've cut up. We've already cooked the pasta. And what you do is you put the cheese tortellini in, you cook it, with 5 minutes left you throw the corn in and let that cook up, because it was frozen corn. So there's the cheese ravioli. These are tomatoes.
It seems like the corn on the cob season is so short.
Yeah.
And I like to cut it off and put it in salads.
I love fresh corn.
Yeah, fresh corn.
Fresh corn. This is not fresh corn.
It's so sweet.
These are green onions that we sliced up.
But listen, this is beautiful. Look at these colors.
This is fresh basil that she's cutting up, and boy, does it smell good. I have Parmesan. I'm not going to put all that oil, because we had put oil in the pasta.
We don't usually do picnics in January, but wouldn't this be a beautiful thing to taste?
Yes, this would be amazing.
So pretty.
Yes. Okay, now it's all coming together in my brain, because
she's just a little slow.
I'm done.
And
my brain's already on vacation. It couldn't calculate this. It wasn't working. So that's garlic powder.
And I think our viewers are well acquainted with you enough to know that's probably true. But it's a lot of corn. It's 3 cups.
It's so much corn. Okay, We had a lot of oil in here because we wanted to keep the pasta separated, so I'm not going to add the oil. But so let me.
But you do put olive oil.
Yes. Oh my. Okay.
I love the colors.
And then I'm going to put the. I don't know. It smells good. It's just so much different than I ever. So that's fresh basil, and that smells divine. Now you can't get much easier than this. I mean, come on.
And you know, we really try to help the ladies who work. And you told me last night you went home, roast was in the crock pot. It was just some planning.
Yes, I had the roast in the crock pot with potatoes and onions. Tonight we'll eat roast beef sandwiches with the roast from last night. I went and got some lovely rolls. Can
I come?
Sure. Okay. Sure. You'll get jumped on by dogs, but you're welcome.
Yeah, she's really a good wife because her husband goes hunting and this dog hangs around. Somebody dropped off and he feels sorry for the dog and he calls her and said, "Can I bring the dog?" And she said yes.
What am I going to say? No.
We'll have to ask Carol. Isn't that Carol's
That's
a good marriage
wife,
counselor?
Right?
Yeah.
That's a good wife, right, Carol? Correct. Yes.
That's a good wife. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to try this. I mean, this is cheese ravioli, so you can't go wrong.
Just do it for the color.
Yeah. Yeah, just do it for the color.
Oh boy.
It's interesting.
I think it's good.
It's interesting for sure. It needs to all sit and all the flavors just marry together a little bit, but it's way better than I anticipated.
Well, I really, really like it because I love the tomatoes and the corn together. So you can take ideas from a lot of these that we bring to you and make them your own. So if you want this recipe, I would highly recommend it. But I do think the tortellini would be better because it's smaller.
Yes, for sure.
It would be a lot better.
Yeah.
The information is coming up on your screen. If you want this recipe, we will be glad to get it out to you. And then if you haven't met Carol, you're going to love her, so stay with us.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, you may receive it by contacting us through social media as listed on the screen. When requesting a copy through the mail, be sure to include a self-addressed stamped envelope. Thank you, and please know we always appreciate hearing from our viewers.
All right, I'm very happy to welcome back to the program Carol Erb, a PhD, girl.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
A wonderful accomplishment. And I want to go over your story a little bit from last time because that's the reason you're doing what you're doing now. And I mentioned before we went on the air how gutsy she is because your first husband betrayed you. Can you tell us just quickly how that all happened?
Yeah. Well, it was a spring day, and my son was washing his dad's car, and he came running in because he found a matchbook cover with naked women on the front with the name of a local topless bar. And he said, "Mom, what is this?" And I said, "I don't know." Later that afternoon, I got in the car, 5:30, on a Friday, and drove over to that topless bar, walked in, and I found my husband in there with a bouncer pulling me away and saying, "Ma'am, this is for members only." And that's when I discovered that my husband was involved in a lifestyle that I was totally unaware of.
The amazing thing to me is you see the match cover and you're over there, what, in a couple hours?
Yeah.
And face it. And did you make efforts to save the marriage?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, one of our first appointments was with our pastor, and I had talked to him prior to going in, and my husband had agreed to go with, you know, to meet with him, and the pastor looked at him, he said, "Listen, Carol is willing to work with you through this and in time forgive you. How much pain do you want? A little bit now or a whole lot later?" And unfortunately, he opted for the whole lot later because after a year from there, I had to acquiesce to a divorce.
And so, really out of this, you know, from betrayal to healing, ministry was born And you're well qualified. And this book has some really wonderful recommendations, and one of them is Dr. Clark. And Dr. Clark comes on this show every month, and you got a really great recommendation. Okay, my question right off the top was this for women. What about men? How do men process betrayal?
Well, quite honestly, Arthelene, it's the same process. In fact, I've been asked, are you going to have a book for men? And could we use this book? I said, well, you can go through it. Just be aware that it's all, you know, identifying a woman. But the process is the same.
Yeah, but I do think men look at things differently.
That's true. Yeah. There's something, I think sometimes, honestly, for a man, it's almost more difficult for him to work through.
I think so.
Yeah.
I really do. What are the predictable steps that women would take before they come to you?
Well, one of the first things that a woman goes through is the shock and denial. You know, she can't believe that her husband would do this to her. I mean, you know, so it takes some time to even grasp that this is happening. Another step or unfortunate thing that a woman might choose to do is run away. And the running away looks different for different women. For example, one form of running away could be, the most extreme would be suicide. Another type of running away would just immediately go file for divorce. Others may run into their work and just immerse themselves in work, or pull the covers over their heads. So that will happen. And then, of course, you know, there's the depression stage that they will go through, the anger phase, bargaining, you know, possibly with their husband, even with God. And then finally, the last stage is acceptance. And I will tell women that you know you've arrived at the acceptance stage when it's not the first thing that you wake up thinking about.
Wow. Yeah. And that could be different time frame for different.
Yes, totally.
Is their first impulse, we'll fix it?
Oh, women,
you don't want the marriage to go down the tube, so we're going to fix it.
Yeah, most women. Some, it's like, I'm done. Yeah, but most women desperately want to try to save the marriage. In fact, typically a woman will take on that problem all on her own to try to fix it. And sadly, one of the things that she may try to do would be, you know, schedule counseling appointments, give him different devotional books, workbooks, you know, church. I mean,
lose weight, get a facelift.
Oh, I mean, the list is endless. Yeah, she thinks that if I just fix something with me or my circumstances, then that will change things. And sadly, that's not what the case is.
I went through this book, and I would suggest, we're going to put the website up. If you're going through this horrible situation, which is far too common, you can order this. Is Barnes & Noble and all those people have it?
Yeah,
besides your
Amazon,
website?
yes.
I went through it, so I really think it would be helpful if you would just go through it and see some of the steps that she has come up with. It's such a deep wound, it's hard to describe unless you've had it. What is the worst part? And I made a little list here. Their whole future is at stake.
True.
Are they thinking about that?
Yes,
what am I going to do?
Absolutely. I mean, the two things that a woman is trying to process is, will my marriage be saved? And, or, what is my next step? What am I going to do next? She has difficulty even looking into the future at that point, because the very person that she trusted so implicitly has now utterly betrayed her.
And a lot of times, by the time she finds out, that guy's got a history.
Oh, I've had women find out that there was 5 years or longer of involvement, and it's not infidelity. It started many times with the whole pornography piece.
What can you do about that?
Well, I would say, and I really believe this is foundational, she must go on her healing journey. If she does not go on her healing journey, all her focus is turned on to her husband. And so the book that I've written gives the 12 steps to healing. So it is a decision that she has to make, that she matters, and that she needs to recognize that she is dealing with betrayal trauma. And studies have shown, Arthelene, that betrayal trauma is no different than a survivor of a war zone, a survivor of a natural disaster like a hurricane, tsunami, earthquake.
It is an earthquake.
Yes. And then finally, equivalent to a survivor of like a plane crash or a severe auto accident.
When it comes to porn, Dr. Clark was sitting in that chair, you know, not too many weeks ago. It's a tough one.
Yes, it is. It is. Without the surrender to the Lord, a husband will find it virtually impossible to have victory.
And you know, Carol, what just breaks my heart is that a middle school boy, get it on his phone.
That's true. Yes.
I dread for America and this next generation
Yeah.
of the things that they are putting into our kids' heads. That they're way too young to ever process it. But pornography has been explained to me that it actually does lift the chemical in the brain.
Oh yeah, it is no different than cocaine. In fact, the statistics are for men who have, you know, history of viewing pornography, there is a 300% higher rate of divorce.
300%.
300% that the marriage will have severe difficulties.
And the Bible talks a lot about what you look at, what you see, what you. Why a workbook on healing? How did this occur to you one day that you would write one, which to me you've covered all the bases. I couldn't think of anything you left out when I went through it.
Well, Arthelene, when I went through this, and of course this has been years ago, then I found no help. No one knew how to help my betrayal trauma, much less even begin to start putting the marriage back together. And that is one thing that I'll have to say, the betrayal trauma has to be addressed before the marriage can even start healing. And so I, would look for help for my clients, and I found, some workbooks, but nothing that really spoke on the level that a woman could go in and actually process the work. So I've created a lot of tools and resources in this workbook where she can take all the thoughts and everything that's been stored up inside of her and get it down on paper, and then hopefully work with someone to process all that.
Yeah, men and women are different emotionally, for sure. And I've mentioned Dr. Phil on this program a few times because I like him. And, sometimes these kind of cases, he'll get right in the guy's face and says, you've got to realize what you've done to her. And that's kind of, when you keep using the term betrayal and all of this, that speaks to it. That speaks to the depth.
Yeah, I'll tell husbands, you were the pilot of the plane, and you intentionally took it and took a nosedive and crashed it with your wife in the passenger seat.
Okay, now, if the marriage has not been 100%, and she hasn't been the greatest wife in the world, and so she blames herself, should she?
Well, that's a difficult question. Here's what I say. Yes, maybe perhaps there were some things in the marriage that both of you contributed to, but your husband's infidelity or pornography is 100% his fault unless you put a gun to his head. So, yeah.
Well, I think that is usually the thing that enters in, so the woman, She immediately thinks what her minuses were in the relationship, and takes a lot of blame, and he probably lets her.
Oh yes, and what I'll try to share with my women is that you are not just an outward appearance. You've got a mind, a soul, you've got thoughts, emotions, so you need to look at yourself as a whole person. It's not just one aspect of the marriage and who you are.
Now, I think we went over this before, but I'm going somewhere else with it now. Most of them, when they come to you, they want to save the marriage, they want to salvage it. What's the percentage who can and who do, or have you kept track of that?
Well, I can't say I've got a log with statistics, but I will tell you this. I remember one client in particular, she and her husband came in. She discovered he had had an affair, and I laid out the plan and what it was going to look like and some responsibility that he would need to take, and he said, I'm sorry, I'm not buying into this. So I started the Betrayal to Healing program and plan with her, and he started seeing a change in her. And it was to the point where he gained so much respect for her, because so often a woman will become like milk toast and will just acquiesce to all sorts of things.
Yeah, anything you want.
And the husband loses respect. And so as she, week by week, began getting stronger and stronger, he was so drawn to that he signed in and said, okay, I see the change in her. I want to go through this too.
I've seen that happen too, and I've seen it scare a guy.
Could be, yes.
You know, when she suddenly got strong and all, it became kind of a threat. So there's something else you have to deal with. Now, I know that you have an online, you can get that on the website, you have online help.
Yes, I do.
And you do personal.
Yes.
Do you do it on the phone at all?
I have a video call system. On my website, drcarolherb.com, there is a tab, a link that says Betrayal Support. And not only do I support women through self-guided program or a group program where we meet monthly by video call, or they can work privately with me, I also, Arthelene, have a program for leaders, be it counselors, pastors, ministry leaders, that they can get all the tools and resources they need.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I might have forgotten it, but I really believe that every pastor, a lot of the books that we've offered here ought to be in his library, because they target certain situations that they went to theology school, you know.
Well, this type of difficulty, in fact, betrayal, trauma, infidelity is the second most difficult problem to work with in counseling. And it's not going to be 2 or 3 sessions. It is a monthly, you know, process. It's going to take at a minimum 3 months to work with. So unless you have that kind of time investment, it's going to be
3 months is nothing when your life, a lot of it's at stake.
Yeah.
And so you can get all that information on the website. And can't you tell how easy it would be to talk to this lady? I think God has just gifted you with just your demeanor and your voice and everything.
Well, thank you. It is a passion. I've walked in those shoes, so I know all the obstacles and the terrain. And you're married to a very nice gentleman now who's faithful. A loyal, faithful man.
Now, I jotted this down. Tell me if this is kind of the pecking order. Okay. Shock, tangled emotions, disorientation, and then acceptance and rebuilding.
Correct, yes. Stages of grief.
You can't really skip any of those, can you?
No, in fact, and don't think you're going to go through it orderly either. You may think you're somewhere, and then all of a sudden you jump back to over here because maybe there's been a new discovery. So yes, you'll be processing.
Well, in the beginning, of course, every woman's different, but this might be kind of the norm. You're betrayed, you're shocked, you cry, you're just in the floor, and then eventually you get mad, don't you?
Oh, yes, and that is a stage where a woman can get stuck. And what I will tell her is, be careful of your anger. It is healthy to feel angry. You should.
The Bible says be angry and sin not.
That's exactly right. And, you know, so I will help her, you know, accept her anger and sit with it while she's in that stage. But if she finds she's using her anger to punish, then that's when it's getting over that line.
Is it a dead-end road to sit and just go over and over why?
There is a chapter in the workbook, you know, understanding the why of this affair. And yes, that you can get stuck there. And I think sometimes that's where you just rest in God's sovereignty. You can see some indicators, and I have a whole section on sexual addiction indicators versus infidelity indicators. But as far as
Is there a difference?
Yes, I mean, yes, there is.
What percentage, or is it 100% of the women who try to fix their spouse?
As in how many?
Yeah.
Percentage-wise, I would say every single one of them comes in and wants to fix their spouse, and that's where I have to really shift their thinking.
Because they can't.
No, you can't change anybody.
But with God's help, you can be fixed.
Oh, yes.
And when you look back over your situation, is there a time frame, and was there a moment that said, yes, this is behind me?
Yes. The first year, you're just getting through it. The second year, you're adjusting. The third year is when you take wing. And so I would say, you know, allow yourself.
You take wings if you want to.
Yes.
And if you'll work at it.
Right.
I've mentioned before, when I did a show called Solo Act, I got a letter from a viewer, and about 3 times she was in a nursing home. About 3 times in the letter, she said, he wronged me 30 years ago. He wronged me 30 years ago. And, you know, that's hard. That just breaks your heart.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be like that.
That brings me to the chapter of resentment, which precedes forgiveness.
And you don't want to live in resentment, but we're out of time. Hey, come back and see me again. This is a subject that can really take 2 or 3 programs. And I really thank you for being with us, and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful new year. Hope you'll get that devotional and that you'll live closer to the Lord in the new year than you ever have before. So join me next time, remembering there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.